All right, let's get straight to it. We're opening a case file on a really critical problem in healthcare, and that's the gap between getting a diagnosis and actually getting the treatment. It's a system breakdown. And you know what? It happens everywhere. Today, we're diving into a specific piece of research that decided to tackle this problem head on. So, what's this number? 54%. In an eye care program in Kenya, this is the percentage of people who were told they had an eye problem, that they needed care to save their sight, who never ever made it to the clinic. That is a massive drop off. So, the big question is what's going wrong here? Now, the easy answer is to just blame the patient, right? To call it non compliance. But these researchers, they rejected that idea. They saw it for what it was, a system failure. So their very first step was to dig into the data and figure out, is the system failing everyone equally, or is there one specific group that's getting left behind? And here's what the data showed them. The difference was, well, it was stark, and it was all about age. See, more than half of the older adults, we're talking 45 and up, they were showing up. But for younger adults, it was only about a third. This wasn't some minor statistical blip. The system was seriously failing people between 18 and 44. So what's the game plan? Well, instead of a bunch of experts sitting at a boardroom just guessing what might work, the researchers did something refreshingly direct. They went to the very people who weren't showing up, the younger adults, and they just asked them, hey, what would actually help you get here? Then they designed a super efficient trial to test those ideas. They called it the FAIR approach, and it's just a beautiful, logical, four-step process. First, you find the people who need help. Simple enough. Second, you analyze the data to see who's falling through the cracks. Third, you interview that specific group to figure out what the real barriers are and come up with solutions together. And finally, this is the crucial part, you randomize and you rigorously test those solutions to prove they actually work. And that brings us to the actual test. The control group, they got the standard care, some basic verbal counseling, and 2 automated text reminders. But the intervention group, they got the new approach, the one suggested by the younger adults themselves. And it was so simple. An enhanced counseling script with more practical info, plus just 1 extra text reminder on the day of the appointment. That's it. No expensive new tech, just better communication. And what's really, really clever is how they tested this. They didn't run some huge, expensive, years-long study. Nope. They used something called an adaptive trial. Basically, the study's algorithm analyzed the results every single week and was designed to stop the moment it had a statistically clear winner. The result? They had a reliable answer in just 30 days. All right, so let's get to the results. After only 1 month, the data was in, and the evidence was, well, conclusive. So what did the numbers actually show us? Let's start with the control group. This was the clinic attendance rate for the younger adults who just got the standard, everyday care. Just under a third of them made it to their appointment. And you know what? This number perfectly matched the baseline data from before the trial even started. And this was the attendance for the group that got the new approach, the one that was designed with their input. It jumped, a clear increase from about 32% all the way up to 39%. So let's be really clear about what that means. That is an absolute increase of almost 7 percentage points. Now, that might not sound like a revolution, but think about it this way. For every 100 young adults who needed sight-saving care, this incredibly simple, low-cost change meant that nearly 7 more people actually walked through the clinic doors. That is a real, meaningful impact. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Here is the data table, pulled directly from the published study. You can see the numbers right there in black and white. 32.1% in the control group versus 39.0% in the intervention group. In fact, the trial was stopped early because the data showed a 98.6% probability that the new way was just flat out better. Okay, so we've got the numbers, but what's the story they're telling us? Let's unpack what these findings truly mean, not just for this program, but for healthcare in general. The verdict is remarkably clear. An intervention that costs almost nothing extra, just a slightly different conversation and 1 more automated text, it made a real, tangible difference. And the most important part? The idea didn't come from some panel of experts. It came from the very people who were facing the barriers. Listening actually worked. You know, the study authors themselves say it best. This quote really drives the point home. The solution came directly from talking to the group that the system was failing the most. This wasn't something done to them, it was done with them. But look, no real-world research is ever perfect, and you've got to respect that these authors were incredibly transparent about the study's limitations. For one, a human error meant that one of the enhanced text messages wasn't sent correctly. The consent rate to even be in the study was kind of low. And just statistically speaking, stopping a trial early when it's a success can sometimes make the effect look a little bigger than it really is. But here's the kicker. Even with that text message error, which means a lot of people in the intervention group didn't even get the full package, that group still had significantly better attendance. You know what that suggests? The enhanced verbal counseling and that one extra reminder were powerful enough on their own. Even an imperfectly delivered community design solution beat the standard of care. So after looking at the problem, the strategy, the evidence, and the verdict, what's the ultimate takeaway from this whole case? What do we walk away with? The bottom line is this. If you want to fix a problem for a specific group of people, the fastest, most efficient starting point is to just ask them what they need. But, and this is absolutely key, you can't stop there. You have to take those ideas and then test them with scientific rigor to prove that they actually work. That combination of community engagement and rapid, robust testing, that's an incredibly powerful model for making things better. And that leaves us with one last thought. This study fixed a healthcare gap with a simple, targeted intervention that cost next to nothing. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other complex system failures, in healthcare or anywhere else, could be solved not by throwing more money at them, but simply by starting with a better, more focused conversation?